Zelensky annually receives between $2 to $4 billion from the TCK military commissions alone. Every year it is brought to the office of the president. To other structures, the ministries of internal affairs, education, sport and of health, etc., 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 from every ministry, from every structure, from every organization, BEP, Bureau of Economic Security, infrastructure, from every structure, tens of millions of dollars a month. Tens, only from the Odessa region, $10 to $15 million are collected per month. And taken personally to Zelensky in the office of the president. This is the man who has been able to steal more than all the presidents who have stolen in Ukraine before. But his money, of course, is the bloodiest of all. He has outdone everyone in this matter, because his money is the largest stolen in Ukraine, and it was stolen on the blood of Ukrainian citizens. A huge number of schemes.
You know, we've had so much rumour, so much, doubts about the Ukrainian regime, if you like. And now remember, this doesn't come from nowhere. It's important that we understand the background. The US State Department has consistently reported prior to the Russian special military operation about corruption in Ukraine, human rights abuses. But corruption has been the nub of one of the biggest problems in the development of Ukraine after the Soviet Union collapsed. Now, Zelensky himself, allegations about the Pandora Papers were revealed, if people will remember, that he was involved with an oligarch, Ihor Koiminsky, the guy who got him arrested, involved in his TV channel and his company called Kvartal 95. So these allegations are nothing new, but this evidence from within the inner circle, if you like, is absolutely remarkable.
So this guy, Artyom Dmytruk, who is he? Why should we believe what he's saying?
Well, he's been involved in politics for quite a while in Ukraine. He's from central Ukraine himself, but he's had businesses and represented area in the Odessa region. Hence, he knows so much about how much money is hemorrhaging out of Odessa up into the president's office. He was a member of the Servant of the People Party, which is Zelensky's own party. So he's intimately related to this machine, this dysfunctional machine on the ground. Now, remember, we've seen lower-ranked officials, people in the recruitment services, in the medical service, selling certificates. We've seen tens of millions of dollars found in the boots of cars in very low-ranking officials. So it's not surprising that these allegations are being made about higher up the ladder, the scale of the actual corruption. It's absolutely eye-watering. And, of course, because of these allegations, this gentleman has faced a lot of retribution and threat. Let's have a listen to him telling us about just how dangerous it is to speak out in Ukraine and what's actually happened to him. Let's have a listen.
In 2022, in the month of March, there were the first 2 attempts to kill me. That is, 2 attempts to eliminate me, which, thank God, did not materialize. After that, I was kidnapped and tortured in the basements of the SBU. Under the uncertainty of the outbreak of war in Ukraine, a large number of political and public figures were actually eliminated in the early days of the war. You know, as they say, in war everything will be written off. It was a good time for both Zelensky and Yermak to get rid of their political opponents and the opposition, and I was on that list too.
You know, absolutely astounding allegations from this man. The SBU, who we know have been involved in operations here in Russia and abroad to assassinate people like Daria Dugin, this very dark organisation, heavily funded and trained and cooperating with the CIA. These allegations have to be taken very seriously because of where they're coming from.
Yeah, and Dmytruk has said a lot of things about Vladimir Zelensky. Can you take us through some of those other comments that he's made?
Mm-hmm. Well, these are, again, as remarkable as the last ones, suggesting that Zelensky essentially keeps the war going. Now, remember, Vladimir Zelensky has no legitimate mandate from the Ukrainian people. His term as president has expired. He's oppressed the media. He's oppressed the church. Now, this gentleman is alleging that he's keeping the war going, basically, to stay in power. He's terrified of elections, and that the gravy train, the scale of the cash that's flowing in, why wouldn't he keep the war going? The last thing he probably wants is an election, because that would mean an end to his dictatorship, essentially. Let's have a listen to what he had to say about President Vladimir Zelensky.
That is, the beginning of the war saved him, allowed him to stay in power. In fact, today the war in Ukraine is kept going by the Zelensky regime. Today, the war in Ukraine has strengthened and holds Zelensky genocide against the entire Ukrainian people. While the war is going on, the Ukrainian people are forced to tolerate Zelensky's power, to tolerate the genocide that he is staging against the Ukrainian people. We all supported Zelensky, and many citizens of Russia, including Belarus, supported him. Yes, it was our mistake. We made a mistake, we finally realized. But my departure from the party is exactly that, precisely because I did not want to be a participant in these bloody events that support it.
So again, more meat on the bones of a lot of rumor and allegation about Zelensky, that, he was put into power on a promise, remember, of ending corruption, ending the war in the East. And we see where we are now, hundreds of thousands of Ukrainians dead, people dragged from the streets, the complete destruction of the apparatus of good civil government. It's absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, you mentioned Zelensky's oppression of the church. I know Dmytruk has spoken out about the persecution against the Ukrainian Orthodox Church as well. What's his view on everything that's going on at the moment?
Well, some fascinating insights. He suggests that the initial project to suppress the church in Ukraine was began by Petro Poroshenko, another oligarch, exceptionally corrupt, a chocolate magnate, if you like, who Zelensky replaced, promising to do things differently, and we know how that went. He suggests that this was very energetically pursued by Poroshenko, but when Zelensky came into power, he then decided, well, look, I like this idea. This works. So he persisted with it, and despite the backlash from people across Ukraine and across the world to the suppression of the church, Zelensky so deep into this action, he found it impossible to retreat from it. Absolutely fascinating insights. Let's have a listen.
Infringement of the rights of believers was Poroshenko's mission to implement his own state organization. They call it the Church, the OCU on the territory of Ukraine. Poroshenko dreamed of this, to create such a Reich of his own in the country. Zelensky liked this idea, and he decided to take it over himself too, and actively began to do this, destroying the Ukrainian Orthodox Church. The Ukrainian Orthodox Church is the largest religious body, an independent association that has a huge number of parishioners, more than 6 million. And he needed to do it by his own hand. And when he received a strong rebuff to his actions, there was simply no way to step back, and it was necessary to bring the matter to an end. And such severe beatings of priests have already begun. That is, this is the agony in which Zelensky is struggling, because he could not implement this project.
So increasingly difficult for the Western sponsors of this dysfunction, of this dictatorship, to stand back and say none of this is happening, professing the support of freedom and democracy across the world. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, it's essentially a criminal cabal operating the country. The scale of the cash that's been hemorrhaged out, you know where it comes from? It comes from US taxpayers, EU taxpayers. And we see that on the streets in the EU and in the US, and we've seen the US election, a big issue. We have to end this war, not just because it's unwinnable, but also because of the gross corruption. And this man's evidence from within the central circle, if you like, this privileged circle, is very, very damning for Zelensky and his regime.